Hello. Today we're going to talk about the large structure of economy. We're going to talk about the differences between the feminine economy and the masculine economy. And to do that, I'm going to use a timeline and I'm going to use several sources. So let's get into it. This source here tells us that if we were to build a human culture from the ground up, the baseline, of course, is the environment. What's over that, the baseline for the human culture, is going to be economy. Economy is the base for everything. This source here is going to give us a great example of how when the Europeans came over and took over native North America from the natives, the first order of business was to change the economy. The feminine economy of the natives was not able to work with the masculine economy of the Europeans. And so, the first thing to do to enculture the natives to be more like the white man was to change their feminine economy. With my timeline, I'm going to talk about different periods in history. The Paleolithic, the Neolithic, native North America, and Scandinavia in the 1970s. In the Paleolithic, right here, we see the Kung. The Kung, according to biological tests, DNA tests, they are, if not the oldest, some of the oldest people on Earth. That means I was a Kung. I come from the Kung. You come from the Kung. Everybody comes from the Kung. All humans have come from this lineage. That's what that means. So way back here, the Kung's feminine economy is still the same as it is way up here in the 1970s when the Ivy League schools started to study the Kung, go and live among them and start to study them. Okay? So the Kung is the most studied and it has the most data on it of any hunter-gatherer culture that we have in the world right now. So I'm going to talk about them first. Way back here in the Paleolithic, the Kung started economy. Okay? They started their economy, whatever. It was the feminine economy of sharing. The gift is often what they call, what all sorts of feminine sources, and research calls, the feminine economy is often called the gift economy. Because it's just straight up. You just give. If you have a service to give, you give the service. If you want something, you ask for it. People share with each other and give and back, and there's an idea that whatever you give, you will get back. But at the time that you give it, there is no kind of assurance of when you'll get it back or whether it will be the exact equal kind of quality and all this kind of stuff, okay? It's a simple, the service is given directly. So from this book, we get some good examples of what it might be like for a Kung, okay? And in their economy, what it might be like. And so Nisa is talking about her ex-husband who comes around sometimes still to, visit with other people that live around there or whatever. And he still comes and asks her for things. And her current husband tells her, that she shouldn't deny him, because the worst thing that you can be in the Kung is stingy. That will get you talked about more than anything else, okay? And put down. Others look down on stingy people. This is how the gift economy works. Stinginess is considered very bad, very rude. So even though she's not married to Besa anymore, whenever Besa comes around and he asks Nisa for food, she gives him food. Whenever he comes around and asks her for water, she gives him water. Whenever he comes and asks for tobacco, she gives him tobacco. This is the gift economy. This is the very first human economy. It's simply called sharing. And what it is in family units. Okay, so the family was king back then. And you share with those around you, you share with your family first, and then everybody else. No one went hungry in these groups. These groups may not have had any money, but amazingly, they worked only 3 days a week. They were able to raise their own children and spend time with their own family for their whole lives. They were able to take care of their elderly, okay? And they had lives full of, like I said, 3 days a week of work, and the rest of the time singing, dancing, making love. They had very healthy sex lives. Okay, let's move on. So that was the Kung way back in the Paleolithic and their feminine economy. Here goes the Neolithic. The Neolithic is an interesting time period in history that one of our sources, geez Louise, I can't even remember which one it is now. Anyways, one of our sources describes the Neolithic as the most egalitarian period in human history. Okay? In the Neolithic, between 11,000 BC and 2000 BC, I'm going to be talking about cities. Jericho, Kahuk, I hope I'm saying that right, Crete, Corral, Hagar. I hope I'm saying that right, okay? These cities, Jericho is in the Middle East, so is Kahuk. Crete was in Europe. Corral was in South America. And Megar, I know I'm saying that wrong, was around Pakistan, India, okay? So these were cities during this time. But a correlation of this time period is that this time period is really associated with feminine leadership. Whenever archaeologists find any kind of artwork, little statues from this period, they're all feminine. They're all women. They have big, big boobies and big, big butts and big, big bellies, pregnant bellies, okay? This is the time of the great goddess. This is the time when God was a woman, the Neolithic, okay? But lucky for us, we're not talking about religion right now. What we're talking about is economy. So we can look at all these cities from all around the world, and we can talk about what was their economy like. Their economy was characterized by feminine leadership. Their economies were characterized by not a big gap between rich and poor. Everybody had what they needed. Everybody had a place to live. Everybody was eating. There also is no central authority in this time period. There was religion and there was trade. In fact, that's what these cities were based on. They were based on trade, and they were making profits. There were people who had more than the rest, but not like this. No, it was more like this, okay? Some people had more than the rest, but no one went hungry. Everybody had the basics of living: housing, food, clothing. Okay? That's really what this time period is telling us. These were real cities, and they made it work. They had feminine leadership. Everybody's needs were met. This is a commonality. You saw that in the Kung. You see it now in the Neolithic. Some people had a little bit more. The Neolithic, we're moving more towards, okay, more where we are today. And that's great. It's a great place to be. It's great for some people to have a little bit more. But it's very important to femininity that everyone has what they need, that no one doesn't have something that they need. Okay? Let's move on. we're going to come back to the idea that there's no central authority in these places. We're going to come back to that when we talk about politics. Okay, now let's talk about Native North America. These are some Indian tribes: Iroquois, Cherokee, Navajo, Pueblo, Hopi, Chickasaw, Eskimo. These are not their proper names, and I'm sorry that they're not their proper names, but I wanted to use the names that most Americans would be familiar with. So these groups are very feminine groups. I'm not saying that all Native Americans were feminine groups, because they weren't. But these groups were. So from these is where I'm going to draw my examples. Again, what you have is a gift-giving economy. Some of these, had money, some kind of money representation. These had some kind of money representation, whether it be, trinkets like shells or beads, or, okay, there's some forms that say to people, these people are wealthy, right? These people are a little bit more up here. But again, in this economy, everyone had what they needed, okay? It's not about an economy based on buying your needs. It's about an economy that's based on getting a little bit extra after everyone's needs are met. So let's talk about some of the things that are commonalities within these feminine economies that we've been talking about, and let's sort of bring it down to where we are now, okay? So I'd like to point out a few things right now, is that these economies were in the past. So how does that relate to us today? Well, have you ever heard of the second shift? The second shift is something that happens to women. This is where we go to work and we make money, and then we come home and we do a lot of work around the house that we don't make money for. This is the second shift, all right? This is something that most women have heard of, and it's something that most women feel and understand deeply. There's a statistic that, American men work about 40 hours a week and they get paid for all of it. American women work about 70 hours a week and only get paid for maybe 30, 30, 40, something like that, right? We already do so much work that we don't get paid for. This is our gift. This is our gift economy. The gift economy happens now. Happens every day. And we women are the biggest percentage of the gift economy. We're the ones that wipe the butts. We're the ones that mop the floor. We're the ones that clean the toilet. We're the ones that make the dinner. Now, I'm not saying that holds true for everyone. I'm talking about big numbers and overall numbers, statistics. There's also a gift economy at work when you're a child. When you're a child, you don't pay for anything. Your family takes care of you. That goes all the way back to the Kung. That's how everything was in the Kung. Everybody in your family is who takes care of you. There's not this idea that only things that make money are any work of value, okay? So a lot of times what we do as women is we have all this stuff on our plate. Our plate is full. And we don't realize how this relates to the economy, but in fact it does. It relates to the masculine economy that says that every exchange that we do can only be quantified by a money exchange. And that money exchange is what really makes things meaningful, and that all other work isn't talked about, doesn't need to be talked about, and shouldn't be something that we're really discussing when we discuss economy. Okay, let me look at my list here. Let's see where we've gotten to so far. Here's a commonality. Everything that we're going to talk about when we talk about feminine systems is going to have the commonality that they are all social. At the base of the feminine economy, a service, a service, a service, a service, a service, a service, it makes social connections. At the base of the market economy, it makes isolations. The only way that you can make a profit in the market economy, well, let's not say the only way, but the biggest way that you can make a profit in the market economy is to sell your thing for more than you paid for it. Along the way, you have to rip someone off or something off or pay less than what it's worth or get it cheap or whatever in order to sell it for more, to make more on it. You're always trying to get the best deal. Haggle. Get it down, get it down, get it down. Take, take, take. This creates separation. And this is a commonality that we will find in many masculine structures. It's called isolation. It's at the root of most mental health illnesses that you find in masculine cultures. It's called isolation. Very big difference from the feminine and the masculine. The feminine works, the masculine works to pull apart everything, wants to dissect everything down to its littlest increment. The feminine energy works to connect everything, wants everything to be connected in a web so that everything depends on everything else. Depending on other things is not negative. In the feminine mind frame, you see how depending on others allows you to have the best life possible. Because when we are putting all this pressure on ourselves to do every single thing ourselves, it doesn't create a good life for us. We end up overworked, underpaid, not with our families, not with our loved ones, and isolated. All right, let me look at my list. Let's see what else we got going on. I got some data here for you from this source.